Hi, I'm author Dennis Blanchard, author of 300 Zeros, Lessons of the Heart on the Appalachian Trail. One of the difficult things for an author is deciding what goes into the book, be it fiction or nonfiction, and what doesn't make it to the book, what ends up on the cutting room floor. When I wrote 300 Zeros, I had to make those decisions. I hiked the Appalachian Trail. It's 2,200 miles long, and over a period of 6 months you get thousands of very interesting stories, some very sad, some very humorous, all great material to work with when you're an author. There are a few examples of the things that didn't make it into the book. First of all, I was at Rock Springs Hut in Pennsylvania in 2008. I had been hiking for quite a while, off and on, with a fellow by the name of Enoch. That was his trail name. Everybody has a moniker on the trail. At that particular shelter, some relatives had shown up, and they had his niece with them. And she's 4 or 5 years old. Really cute little kid, very precocious. When she first spotted me, I could see her whispering to her mother very excitedly, "That's him, that's him, that's the one." And I asked, "The one? Which one?" And her mother said, well, they'd been reading a series of books to her, and I think it was Harry Potter at that time, I'm not positive. And she, I think, thought that I was Dumbledore from the Harry Potter series. I had a very long beard at that point. After you've been on the trail many months, most of the guys tend to grow one. And I had my floppy, big hiking hat. Dumbledore? Maybe. The interesting thing was, at the end of the evening, and she had stuck to me like glue all evening, at the end of the evening she said to her mother, "Mommy," she said, "where do all these people that live in the woods go in the winter?" We all cracked up. Cute question, but very precocious. At another time, I was at the Abingdon Gap Shelter, just outside of Damascus, Virginia, just south of it. I'd been hiking for most of that day with a group of high school age kids, maybe middle school, 14, 15-year-olds. And they'd been lamenting the fact that they hadn't seen any wildlife all week. I'd been telling them about all the bears that I had encountered. Overall, I think I ran into 38 bears. The rattlesnakes, the wild boar, the deer. They were so excited and so disappointed because they hadn't seen any. This is not unusual when you have a group of hikers hiking together. There's lots of noise, plenty of warning. The animals tend to run off and hide long before the groups get there. I was hiking a solitary hike and was able to be fairly quiet, so I saw lots of animal life. I took my cell phone and I was going back up the trail that evening after dinner to go make a call and get in touch with some friends. And I was perhaps 100 feet from the shelter, and I looked back, and here are all these kids surrounding the fire, and they're sitting there disappointed they hadn't seen any animals, and standing right behind them, about 8 feet away, was a huge buck deer looking at them in disbelief. They never saw the deer. That's the way it happened. As you walk along on the trail, your mind is very active, especially if you're doing a solitary hike. One of the thoughts that kept going through my mind was writing a script. I never did. Here's an idea, though. Writing a script based on a character similar to Doctor Who. Only he would have been Hiker Who. His adventures would center around going from shelter to shelter in each episode, and getting to the next shelter would be interesting. In Doctor Who, he gets into a phone booth, a British old-fashioned telephone booth, and goes off to some other planet. In this case, Hiker Who would have gotten into the privy and then gone off to some other shelter, perhaps in another time. These are the kinds of things that go through your mind when you're a hiker on the Appalachian Trail. It took me 6 months. It was a heck of a lot of fun. I met some wonderful people, absolutely fantastic people. If you want to hear more about it, read more about it, the book 300 Zeros, Lessons of the Heart on the Appalachian Trail will fill that desire. Check it out at 300zeros.com. Good night.